The university's lab building was never really deserted, even late on a Friday night. When they pulled into the parking lot, Paula peered through the light rain and silently counted the lit rooms. "Well," she said as she closed the door, "at least there's someone around to call in an emergency." Sal eyed her from across the car's roof. "Don't get ahead of yourself. We don't know there'll be an emergency. Let's just go up to your lab and see what's going on first. I'd feel a whole lot safer if we had something to kill it with, whatever it turns out to be. If it's alive, if..." He'd come around to the passenger side by then and took her hand. "Come on, we'll be okay." "Why? Do you have a gun or something? Or will we have to try beating whatever it is to death with a chair?" Yeah, I do. A gun. I have a gun." She pulled her hand free. "You what?" "It's not mine, though." He opened his jacket and pulled the corner of a plastic bag from an inside pocket, lifted it far enough for her to see the end of the barrel. "I found it at the work site, all bagged up like this." Paula squeezed her eyes shut and grimaced. "You found a handgun in a plastic bag at a construction site? Did it ever occur to you that it might have been tossed there because it had been used in a crime? Hell, do you even know if the thing works? If it's loaded?" "Well," he said sheepishly, "I figure if it was used in a crime, then it probably does work. And yeah, it's loaded. I checked." She stepped closer. "So I was just picked up by a stranger with a loaded gun in his pocket? This just gets better every minute. Look," he said, gesturing for calm, "I think dealing with your runaway experiment is just a bit more important right now than whether I'm likely to blow your head off. No, I didn't mean that. Come on, let's go take care of your monster. Then, if we're still alive after that, we can argue about how stupid I am, okay?" A few minutes later, Paula gingerly unlocked the lab and opened the door. Sal followed her inside and stopped to look around while she walked over to the rack of electronics to the right of the oversized fluid-filled tank that dominated the room. There was a fire extinguisher in handy reach from the other end of the tank and what looked like a master kill switch for the pumps and other gizmos attached to it. The top was held in place by a set of clamps, so it would take some time to remove it should that be needed. Having satisfied herself about whatever she needed to see on the monitors, she approached the tank. Sal was already there when she stopped drifting towards her experiment. "So this is your stew," he said, wiping some condensation off the front glass. "How can you tell what's going on in there?" She nodded towards the bag of monitors. "That's what the special cameras and sensors are for, but it's a lot thicker now than when I left." "What do they show? Have we got a monster in here?" "There's something, all right, but it's all just a complex probability wave until we turn off the juice. The changes I saw earlier, and the scattering of partially built structures that are in there now, are just leakage from the quantum coherence I made possible. As soon as the power is cut, and the conditions that are supporting this hyper-complex web of acausal quantum connectivity change sufficiently, that probability wave will collapse into our world of classical matter and energy, and we'll know what I've done, what kind of a monster I've made." Sal glanced at her. "Then I guess we'd better get ready to deal with whatever it is." He grabbed the fire extinguisher and set it down in front of the tank. Then he pulled the gun out of its bag and set it down on a nearby table. "Okay, what do you want me to do?" "I'll shut off the experiment from the console. Then you smash the tank with the extinguisher. That'll pull the thing's quantum internet out from under it. There ought to be a loud snap when all that potential ground itself. But there's no way to know how big the thing might be, or what it might look like. It's been designing itself in a kind of parallel universe, after all. Ready?" He nodded and picked up the extinguisher. "On the count of 3, then." At the 0 mark, Paula pressed enter, and Sal heaved the extinguisher against the tank, but it bounced off rather than shattering the glass. "Shit!" He tried a second time, then dropped the canister and snatched the gun off the table. While he was swinging around to aim at the tank, the thing erupted, as whatever materialized inside it displaced some of the stew, and a crack of watery lightning illuminated the glass case in a blinding flash. "Get it open!" Paula yelled. Sal rubbed his eyes. "Damn it," he grumbled. "I can't see." "Well, I can," she said, running towards him. "Give me that thing." She grabbed it out of his hand and squeezed off around into the side of the tank, but it only made a hole, leaving the glass leaky but intact. By this time, he'd regained enough sight to act, and he rammed the fire extinguisher into the injured glass, which shattered and released the slimy stew to cascade across the floor. As the fluid in the tank drained, a shape was revealed inside. A small one, easily small enough to strangle if it came to that. Paula stepped closer, ignoring the muck splashing against her, the gun jiggling in her hand, which was dancing an erratic rhythm of its own. Sal pried it out of her hand and aimed it at the thing while she reached towards it. It moved. They looked at one another and then at the little monster. It was wrapped in what appeared to be a thin, flexible membrane of some sort. As the remnants of the thick stew continued to drain away, it started to show some coloration. Paula gingerly touched the membrane, and when she removed her finger, they could both tell that it had a sort of mottled appearance. A second later, it jumped, turning about 90 degrees to the right. She pulled her hand back and looked at Paul. "Well?" he asked. "Should I shoot it?" "Yes." "No, wait. I want to see what it is, but keep that thing handy, just in case." She went to a cabinet and returned with a rag, which she used to wipe more of the stew from the thing's colorful membrane. There were patterns to the color, intricate lacy swirls of vibrant red, gold, and blue. "Wow," he breathed, leaning closer. "If it's a monster, it sure is a colorful one." Paula bit her lip and reached toward the edge of the membrane. Then she carefully slid her hand under it and giggled. "What? What's so funny?" "It's got fur. Whatever this is, it's furry." "Great," he said. "But so are tigers, and I don't think I'd be poking around one of them either. In fact," an odd sort of chirping purr erupted from the case, and the multicolored monster started to wriggle free of the membrane. At first, it looked like the wrapper was falling off the thing to reveal an expanse of orange fur, but then the wrapper folded back, and it was clear that the thing was more of a calico monster. "Are you a cat?" Paula whispered, reaching towards it. "Good question," Sal agreed, putting the gun down and kneeling in the muck before the tank. Its face certainly looked like one, and the tail, but it was obvious there was no way they'd be able to pass it off as a real cat. Not after it finished stretching and had extended those gorgeous butterfly wings.